Nice. All right, so we went with a vintage song for a vintage sound for a vintage rig. So what you got now?
I call this my Georgia the Jungle bass.
All right, perfect.
Now.
Now, yes, of now.
This is a 1972 Fender Precision bass.
Nice. I
All
like it.
original.
I love the burst.
Yeah.
Very cowboy.
They're just the
Very in a bar with
checking.
Waylon Jennings late at night kind of vibe.
It's I've always been a jazz bass player, and like I was saying before, there were times I wanted to sound like a P or a Music Man, and I always had to fatten up those single coil
Right.
little pickups. This is the sound.
Yeah, right, yeah.
This is the one that launched 1,000 ships.
It is. It's a great bass.
Um,
Designed by Leo Fender. I mean,
That's right.
The dude.
The dude.
Was a genius, man.
I'm kind of a fan.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just something that I always wanted to have in the arsenal. I think
Yeah.
most guys that have been playing 30 years and made records
Definitely have
one
Yeah,
around.
right, yeah, for sure. And it's just got an overall volume and overall tone, right?
completely.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how many sounds, so many legendary records were made with these two knobs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And the
yeah.
rest was in these.
Yeah.
And what you do with it. It
Yeah.
still even has the old rest.
Do you play with one of those? Because I always was like, I didn't understand why the rest was on the underside because I thought it was for my thumb. But used to people grabbed a hold of that and they thumbed the string, right?
Exactly right. When they originally came out with the design in, 51?
Right, yeah.
People were still playing uprights in the big bands. And
Oh,
whatnot.
right, yeah.
That was
And
their
so it was
technique.
they were
No one had
transitioning.
invented electric technique.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Leo was inventing it as we speak, yeah.
Well, the players, as soon as they got the tool, all bets were
yeah,
off.
absolutely.
It was only 14 years later, James Jamerson was doing everything with one finger.
Right, yeah.
That they called the hook.
Yeah.
At first, as of course, they invented this in the amplifiers to compete with the big band. You could never really hear the bass. The bass was always a rhythm and support instrument.
Guitar has the same story, man. It's
Yeah.
a story of getting louder. It's
Exactly.
just a story of being louder.
It's a big part of the story is paying 4 dudes instead of 25.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly, right.
But yeah, that was how they would do it.
Yeah. Yeah,
And you can hear the difference in the tone.
definitely.
So a lot of the cats would do a hybrid. Once they moved to these fingers for speed,
Yeah.
you would still get a lot of thumbing for.
It gives it a bassier sound, yeah.
So just simple tool, a million different ways to play it,
Yeah.
and the sound of early American rock and
absolutely.
roll on into.
So it's running through a vintage amp as well.
It is. That's a 1965 Ampeg B-15. Again, James Jamerson, one of my most favorite bass players. He was in the Motown house band, so all
Oh,
of the
wow.
legendary Motown bass lines you can think of
Or on that?
are on that.
Wow. That's super cool, man.
It's only 60 watts.
Yeah.
It gets very fuzzy when you get it much louder than this,
Yeah.
which some people like. But everything afterwards, the SVT, all of the pedals they make that try to recreate Ampeg sounds are basically doing this in the SVT, which was 300 watts
Oh, wow. Yeah.
of tube power.
Jeez.
So, yeah, it's part of that
So it
same
defined
lineage.
the sound. Yeah, absolutely, man. It's incredible.
There's a
So-
certain
So
fatness.
I bet it's quite important to have compression or limiter on a vintage swelly bass through a vintage amp, I would imagine.
It is. they were using really cool old studio compressors, at the time.
Outboard,
on the
like tape compressors.
No, they were built into the board
Oh,
as like part
yeah.
of the channel.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Just impossible to get until innovations came in the late 70s and 80s that put that technology in pedals. The thing about these is that you get natural compression the same way you do with a distorted guitar amp because it's tubes.
Okay, right.
So when you're pushing tubes close to their limit, they
They'll start to
reach a
flatten out
saturation
and
where they
distort.
flatten out in tone.
Yeah.
They can't distort or clip anymore.
Yeah.
So you get that same sound here.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of the hardest factors to recreate in a modern solid state
So
version.
do you use pedals when you're using the vintage rig at all?
I would use a compressor.
You use
Again,
compressor?
because it just makes me sound more even, consistent, fatter, smoother levels.
Yeah.
Which is better for groove
Yeah, yeah.
for the most part. I mean, my accents will still be there,
Yeah.
but it's not going to be a...
So is that Keeley pedal engaged right now, the compression one?
It is.
Okay.
But you can see how I have it set compared to the way it was earlier. Earlier was in more of a limiting. The red was on all the time. And if I turn on the synth, you'll see it go red again. But I only want it on when I'm getting those fast runs. It just even that out for me. Or if
Right.
I'm here and then go to, it's going to even that out. But it's just a touch of it. So yeah, between these two things, I would probably use the Ampeg mostly for recording. If it was a small band, everybody's getting into modelers and stuff these days.
Yeah.
If it was going to be that quiet a stage, I'd show up with my 60-watt Ampeg on a low-level mic.
That's like, man, I've been digging these little vintage guitar amps, like the Gretsch or Fender amps that are like 6 watts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they sound great, but
Yeah.
I mean, you're not gonna get real loud, but it sounds fantastic.
So much
Yeah.
famous stuff recorded on those.
Oh, I
like,
know, man,
Like Jimmy
absolutely.
Page with a Champ
I know,
recording,
yeah,
like a
exactly.
solo for a Whole Lot of Love or something like that. You
and
just
he
hear all
did
these
it-
stories.
He did a lot of that on a Dan Electro too, which was like a composite built Sears guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. We love those.
It's just such a reverse of what we grew up thinking watching stacks of Marshalls and
I know, exactly. Yeah.
And
Which
all
is
that.
cool too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, at least for show, right? Yeah.
Of course.
Is there anything about Keeley pedals or this rig that you wanna say before we leave it be?
This is, like we were saying earlier, this is my personal bassist limiter pedal, and it does live on my board. For $199 list with those 3 knobs, if you're new to compression, it's so simple,
Right.
and so
Yeah.
cheap, and it can really level up your sound on both recordings and when playing with other people.
Yeah.
Because any techniques or unsureness you might have with a pick or something, it's going to smooth all that out.
Right. Yeah.
So I just highly recommend that one. I've had a lot of the other Keeleys as well. These aren't mine, those are yours, but the synth may be mine by the end of the day.
Nice.
But yeah, everything I hear about the guy is amazing. He truly is an OG. Started out modding blues drivers, I believe, on eBay in the 90s for people,
Wow.
word of
Yeah.
mouth.
That's awesome.
And now he just makes incredibly thoughtful stuff.
Yeah. Well, we're happy to be carrying their stuff, man. We're just, tickled pink about it. So, but I haven't even gotten through all those pedals yet, and I'm not a bass player, so it's just great to have you here, man.
Oh, man,
To
thank you so
tell
much.
us what we don't know about the stuff we got in the showroom. Yeah.
This is a blast.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much. Well, let's go out playing something. So give us a sound. You want to get bubbly or you want to stay clean? What do you want to do?
Let's see what we could do. Maybe we'll do a little bit of both.
Nice. Dude, I messed that up so many times, but you know what? The character of it, the soul of it was good.
Yeah.
I
you
love
only
it,
need
man.
5 seconds to fade out.